All right, guys. This is another example of me being greedy and having an opportunity to pick the brain of somebody else who knows a whole lot about life. And I think I've said this before. I've just had an opportunity to meet a lot of really high quality, high caliber people in my life. And the person that you're going to be hearing from today, JaJa Richards, coach, is certainly one of those people and fits that description. And I'm going to take a minute here and kind of introduce him. Try my best to do his resume justice because it's very vast, very impressive. But if you don't know the name, you probably have seen him, and if you have seen him, you probably remember. You had to look up. He's very tall, but he runs an organization. He's founder of an organization called All Stars Are Bright, and it's located here, home base in Kissimmee, Florida, and an international program. And the mission of that program is to provide high quality character building, athletic, and educational experiences for boys and girls K through 12. All Stars ABC is an official affiliate organization of the Junior NBA, partner with the Orlando Magic. All Stars ABC is also an official chapter of the National Alliance of Youth Sports, and the organization is committed to academic excellence, and its goals are to have our students shine bright both in the classroom and on the court. Require all student athletes to have a minimum GPA of 3.0. Remember that. You're going to hear that for the rest of your academic careers, so don't get tired of hearing it because you're never going to get away from it. If they do not, we encourage them to receive tutoring. We believe firmly that academics must take precedence over athletics. And again, that's something, if you're interested in athletics, you're never going to get away from. And I know a lot of you are interested in athletics. As far as Coach Richards himself, and I'm going to just refer to him as Coach, if he's okay with that from now on, give you a little bit of background into who he is and where he's from and why he is an excellent person to be talking about today's topic. Coach Richards is a certified sports administrator with the National Youth Sports Administrators Association and a member of the NYSCA. Richards is an internationally known professional basketball player who played in the United States and overseas for over 30 countries for 14 years. His talents enabled him to receive a full athletic scholarship to Loyola University Chicago, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in history. An innate love for learning led Richards to obtain his Master's of Education Leadership in 2012. He has played and lived as a professional basketball player overseas, and that provides him with cultural awareness and flexibility across a wide range of subjects. Coach Richards hopes to attract youth with basketball and other sports and use that platform to teach children life lessons and encourage professional growth and educational development. Since retiring from professional basketball after the birth of his son, Coach Richards is an in-demand coach, mentor, and has traveled the world coaching and teaching basketball skills. Coach Richards has given dozens of motivational speeches and basketball workshops to encourage and inspire our youth. Most recently, Coach Richards has had the pleasure of working with the NBA in India as part of the Reliance Foundation and Junior NBA India Inspire Youth to Play program. With all that said, Coach, I, as in demand as you are on a daily basis, I can't thank you enough for taking time to talk to our guys and to really enrich me as well. So, again, thank you, sir. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, my pleasure. This is what I love to do. When you asked me to, have gave me the opportunity, and I thank you for the opportunity to talk to your students. It's my pleasure. So I really appreciate you having me on.
So, in today's topic, again, and we talked about this before, I feel like personally, I try to give a lot of energy to character development. Like, how do we become better young men? How do we become better men? How do we enrich ourselves and surround ourselves with people who are like-minded and help us make good choices? And a lot of that focuses on how to be better, how to get better as people. And I feel like if I have a downfall, it's that I don't spend adequate time, enough time talking about the what if. But what if you mess up? Well, what if you choose wrong? What if you find yourself in as players, we find ourselves in slumps sometimes, right? And sometimes in life we can be there too, especially as a young person, middle school, high school age, maybe even in early years of college, you can find yourself really struggling with this character and figuring out who you are. And that process can be pretty bumpy. And I want to focus our conversation today about around this idea of what do we do if we fall short? What do we do if we find ourselves really struggling? Maybe we want to be a certain type of young man. Maybe we want to be a certain type of person, but we're falling short, and we find ourselves, I hate to use the word failing, but we're struggling. We're not meeting that expectation, and perhaps we see that with people around us. And I want to make sure now I want to qualify this quickly by saying this is not just a youth conversation. I think that grown men can benefit from this idea that we're not always going to be maybe meeting expectations that we set for ourselves, and maybe the consequences are a little higher. Our families see that, and we don't want to impact them. If we're working with youth, our youth see that. But this is a conversation that transcends age, I think. But I'd like to focus there, and I guess I'll just start there. Coach, what would you say are some of the biggest hurdles, specifically young men are facing, middle school, high school age kids? What do you think right now are these things that are causing them to maybe struggle in that area?
Well, I think let's go back a second. Like you said, I think this affects everyone, and I think that's what our our youth need to understand is they're not the only ones that make mistakes. Adults make mistakes as well. And for me, where I am right now, you talked about the organization All Stars are Bright. That came out of a low point in my life where I thought I was a failure, where I thought I was thought I'd fallen short. I retired in 2012. Um, yes, I played professionally for 14 years. I had a brief shot at the NBA, was there in the NBA, but when I retired in 2012, my son was born. I was dealing with I was at a point in my life where basketball had been, as a player, as a hooper, like I thought that was over. Well, it was over professionally. It was over. And I thought, what do I do now?
Hmm.
And I started looking back at my career and going about thinking about the what ifs. If I'd been more dedicated, could I have, lasted longer in the NBA, really made a career there. My son was born. I didn't realize at the time, but I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. My father had passed away right after my son was born, so I was dealing with grief. So I kind of went into a dark period in my life where I just thought that a lot of things that I was dealing with that I didn't handle the right way. So for about a year, I was really depressed and down, and out of that came this concept of all stars are bright. And the concept behind that is, you look up in the sky and you see the stars. Some seem brighter than others, but all of those stars are shining bright. And so for me, even though I felt like where I was at that point in life that I was not shining bright, I still realized that I had some potential. I still realized that I had something to give. So for me, it was, I started going into school and speaking with kids and sharing my story of what I was going through at the time. And it was great to really realize that we still have more to give, even though, that phase of life may be over, there's still more that you can do. So the whole concept behind All Stars Are Bright is where I was at a feeling like a failure, feeling like, lost. Where do I go from here since basketball's over? So it's not just something. I mean, if kids feel like they're making mistakes, if they feel like they're lost, you still have that potential. You can't judge anyone where they are now. Everybody has that potential to succeed. It's just a matter of, recognizing that and being able to go forward from there, you know?
Very good, and that's inspirational too, because I think to some degree we all have this idea of being isolated. We have this isolationist mentality that no one feels the way I feel right now, or no one would understand where I'm at, and I remember being there as a middle schooler too, feeling that almost every day. I felt like, well, no one really gets where I'm at and what I'm dealing with. But I think we can all relate to the general feeling of feeling a little bit uncomfortable and feeling like falling short is kind of becoming the habit. So it's inspirational to see that something as great as your organization was born from one of those moments for you. So even when we're in those moments or we're in that slump, so to speak, we can still have some pretty incredible things happen. So that's
Definitely,
encouraging. Yeah, for
definitely.
sure.
And I like to use basketball as a metaphor. We no, I don't think there's anybody that's ever played a perfect game of basketball. Everybody's going to always make mistakes, and you always have the next play, or the next game, or in life the next day. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up. I don't know if you've heard of the flushing mentality. We try to teach kids, just flush it. Flush it, flush that mistake, and let's move on to the next play. In basketball, there's no time to hang your head, because if you make a turnover, you miss a shot, hey, the game's still going on. You got to run back down the court, and you got to play. So I really, and for me, I kind of, where I was at the phase of my life as an adult, unfortunately, I kind of got caught up and hung my head and got down. And I need to be reminded, hey, life goes on. We got the next day. You got to get up. It took me a couple days, weeks, months to get my head up, but we gotta play the next play. We got to live the next day. So it's completely okay to make mistakes, and even if it was a mistake where it was something intentional, we got to kind of classify mistakes. Some mistakes are just accidents that happen. You mess up. Did something you didn't mean to do, and some mistakes are intentional. Hey, if you took that, you attempted that game-winning shot and you missed. Okay, so what? That was a risk you took, and that's part of life. A lot of people, you got, look at a lot of these successful people out of there. They're successful because of all their failures. You go down the list. So even if it was an intentional mistake, or if it was, an accident mistake, they happen, and we just got to go on to the next one.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good reminder too, that sometimes you got to take chances, and with that there's some inherent risk that it may not work out the way you wanted it to, but that's okay. Very good. I think there's this idea of ownership that is pretty important with that too, because if it's one thing to make a mistake either way, whether it was an accidental or intentional, but I think there's a level of ownership that we have to learn to bear. We have to be okay. And I think that is a learning process. I think we have to learn how to do that, but we have to be able and willing to own that responsibility, because like you said, I can intentionally miss a shot, but I intentionally took the shot in the first place. So I have to just own that and be okay with it. Or
Yeah.
if it's an accident, even there's this idea of, yes, I messed up and I didn't mean to, but I'm going to own the responsibility of what happened, So that's good.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the ownership, because I also work in the school district, and had a situation with students this week where, and I won't get into too many details about that situation or names, but the student, and I told the parent, I said the same exact thing you said. It's okay to make mistakes, even multiple mistakes, but to not learn from it, to not own up to it, is to not learn from it. And so it was a situation where both students, and they came back to class the next day, and I just asked them. I said, "Do you have anything to say?" And one student right off the bat said, "Hey, I'm sorry for my behavior. I apologize for that. Blah blah blah." And came on. Next student was like, "No." So that student, I said, you're not learning if you don't recognize the mistake. If you don't recognize and own up to the mistake, then you're not going to learn from it. So that's number one. Is just like you said, is to be able to recognize and own the mistake. A lot of times we don't want to own it because we don't want to admit that we messed up or that
That's
we
right.
made a mistake. But if we can own it and admit that, and I think it comes down to our youth, everyone, adults even, being okay with mistakes, being okay with messing up, and knowing that it's a part of life, and knowing that, you're talking about character building. I think to say we make a mistake, or to admit that we make a mistake, then that makes us a bad person. It makes you a bad person if you're going to keep on making the same mistake over and over again and not learning from it. Then you have to say, okay, why are we making this mistake? Why do I keep on doing the same thing? And I remember a coach that I had, when I played overseas, it was, most of the time you play games on the weekend. So he's, practice hard all week, play hard on the week. And then, I unfortunately had a habit of going out and partying hard, and then I'd come back and tell the coach, hey, I'm sorry, I was out late or whatever. And after a couple times of that, coach told me, well, stop apologizing, stop making the same mistake, learn from the mistake, I was owning up to it, but I was still making the same mistake over and over again. So at some time you have to change that behavior and move forward. you know.
It's all valuable. Yeah, and it's so good. That example is so good because I'm reminded of my father telling me all the time, no words, change your actions. He didn't want to hear me apologize. He said, just change your actions. You won't even have to speak.
You won't
But
have to apologize anymore, right?
that's right. Yeah, you're going to make everyone's life easier. But I think too, and perhaps you can vouch for this. It seems like adults as well, anybody, people who have the ability, the fortitude to own the mistakes that are made are very unlikely to repeat them. I mean, if you can honestly experience this interpersonal dialogue with yourself to say, you know what, I did this thing, whether it was accidental or intentional, and I chose this I made this decision and it didn't work out. It was a mistake. And I own the pain that I caused. I own the frustration that I caused. I own the mess that I made because of it. They're probably, if that's real for them, they're probably very unlikely to repeat that because they truly understand the consequences. They get, like you said, they learned what that means. And so, and like you said with your example of the students, it seems like if I was in your shoes, I'm probably not going to expect the student that apologized to repeat that behavior, but I would probably keep my eyes and ears open to the student who didn't want to own it because I hate to say it, but it's likely that that type of behavior will repeat itself until that lesson gets owned and they learn from it. So,
It, it,
yeah, yeah.
it's very interesting that you say that. And again, I don't want to get into too many details, but the same student that didn't apologize. So I teach a digital information technology class. So they're on the computers, and the situation in my class is they were doing something on the computers they weren't supposed to. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so they came back. The one student apologized. The student that did not apologize, do you know that the next day, which was yesterday, did something on the computers more serious and is now facing some real serious, actually, school district got involved, SRO officer got involved, and he's possible facing some serious consequences from doing some similar things from not owning up to it and admitting that what he did, he kept the same behavior going and now has more serious consequences. So just like you said, when you recognize what you did wrong, you're more than likely not going to do it again. But when you don't own up to it and you think it's okay, or you're in denial about that you're doing anything wrong, now unfortunately that student is going to face more serious consequences. And I pray for him that, because very intelligent student, very smart student, and hopefully this is something that he'll now, facing serious consequences, will learn in life and now hopefully bounce back from.
Hey, yeah. I mean, like you say, all stars are bright, and we hope that he figures it out and learns it sooner than later. But maybe now is not the time, but hopefully it comes soon. Um, so okay. So how would you encourage if you're talking to a sixth, seventh, eighth grader, even someone in high school, and they confide in you that they're struggling with, they want to be this type of person. They want to live with a high level of character. They want to be good. They want to do right. They all the things that make up someone that we would consider someone with strong character. They want to be compassionate. They want to be kind. They want to be thoughtful. They want to be selfless. They want to give energy, not take it. All these things that we talk about all the time, but they find themselves struggling. They just don't feel like they're meeting those expectations that either they've set for themselves, or maybe it's someone like you or me has kind of put this expectation on them and they feel like they haven't met it. I mean, you've coached so many kids throughout your career. We've had players that have coached, that we've coached, and we've said that this is who we need you to be if you're going to be on our team. And we have those guys that then girls that fall short. How do you mentor them in those moments? How do you encourage them to not just give up, to not just say, forget it, I can't do it, so why even try? What do you tell them? What does that conversation look like?
No, number one thing I would tell them, they're feeling down about it. Let's say, a mistake, a situation that they felt like they've fallen short. We're talking about falling short is, um, forgive themselves. That's the number one thing. Forgive themselves and don't beat themselves up over it. And think about, if someone else did this mistake, a lot of times we're really harder on ourselves than we are on other people. So I
Mm.
would tell them, think about if your best friend, did the same thing that you did. Would you beat them up over it? Would you, run them into the ground, or would you say, hey, it's all right, don't worry about it, next play. So I think that's the first thing we have to do, is learn to forgive ourselves for our mistakes. Flush the mistake and let it go. And then ask yourself, okay, I created this situation, this mistake happened. Have I done everything that I can to possibly fix this situation? Have I done everything I can to make the situation better? And if you can forgive yourself and if you've done everything that you can to fix the situation, then you have to move forward. You have to move forward. We have to wake up the next day and say, today's going to be a better day than yesterday. You know, even if I just, and I always tell kids, I tell, kids that I'm coaching team, I said, our goal every day is just to get 1% better, just 1% better. And you keep adding up that 1% every day, and eventually you're going to be 100% better after a little while. So, forgive yourself and do everything that you can to fix that situation, and let's move forward. But we can't stay stuck in the moment. Just, going back to the basketball analogy, you can't, we got to play the next play. We got to get ready for the next game. So that would be my immediate advice is, hey, flush the mistake. Let's move forward. Sometimes there's mistakes where, people are hurt or situations happen. But again, forgive yourself for it. If you have to make amends, if you have to apologize, if you own up to it and move forward. That would be my.
I love the idea of having them step outside themselves, because you're absolutely right. We just human beings in general, we tend to be much more difficult on ourselves than other people. So stepping outside of ourselves for a moment and casting that action on somebody else and how we would treat them, that's extremely valuable. So thank you for sharing that. I love that. Coach, again, I can't thank you enough for giving your perspective on how to encourage people to navigate. And I said people, not kids, but just people, as we try to navigate through this process of becoming the best people that we can in regards to character, because it's not always smooth sailing. It can be treacherous sometimes, and we can mess up and fall short, and we do. But it shouldn't be enough to give up.
Never,
Yeah,
never, never,
absolutely.
never should be enough to give up. And I think, you could probably look back, everyone could look back and, I know when you're in that moment, it's hard, but if you could think about, hey, if this is the worst mistake I'll ever make, then hey, you're in good shape,
That's right. I
So,
can't tell you how many bad shots I've taken and missed, but people keep passing me the ball, thankfully.
because
So,
you've built a reputation as a good shooter. I know for kids, it's a lot harder to build that reputation, and we're talking about character development, but believe in yourself. And I know it's hard, and that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I want to give confidence to young people. They're our future. We're all of these kids that we're coaching and we're teaching right now, and I say to you kids, we're dependent on you for the future. We're dependent on you for the future of our world. So learn from these mistakes, and let's move on from there. It's because we, coach and I know, coach, you do this program, you're working with them because you believe in them. I believe in the kids. I mean, it may sound cliche, I know the song, but the children are our future. So we have to. It's completely okay to make mistakes. I can't stress it enough how important it is to just always play that next play and move forward. So I just really, really hope any person, young person, older person, high school, adult that's out there struggling with any situation they're going through, and a lot of us are struggling with a lot of things right now with this pandemic and everything that's going on. But this too shall pass, and it'll always be a better day. And I know it's. I've stayed in a dark moment for a time myself, and I had to get out of it. But I really, really believe that if we can learn from our mistakes and move on, that's where the character comes. The character doesn't come from being a perfect person and never making a mistake. The character comes from learning from those mistakes. So don't beat yourself up over it. It's completely okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to fail a test. It's okay to miss a shot. It's okay if you lose a game. How do we come back from it is all that matters.
super valuable stuff, Coach. And again, I don't want it to sound and lose its value, but I certainly appreciate your time and your insight because of your experience being able to share that with these people, with these kids and with these adults that see the video. I just appreciate you very, very much, and hopefully we'll get a win Sunday. How about that?
How about that? There we go.
All right, Coach. I appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks.